Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Over 140 of you. Thank you for joining us. My name is Don Berger. I am with Social Tables, now a part of Cvent, and I'm so pleased, like truly super pleased, to have my friend, my mentor, industry thought leader, Julius Solaris. How are you, Julius?
I'm good. I am pleased to be with you. Such an inspiration for the event technology community and the event meetings community in general. So I'm pumped up. When it gets to trends, social tables is one of the places to go to. So I'm very excited for this one. I'm sure a lot of the attendees share my excitement.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And wherever you are, we are going to make this fun. We're going to make this fast. Julius both and I have, I think, similar ideas, but also some different ones. And hopefully, we'll get some interesting conversation going on. Before we do anything else, I want to just go ahead and kind of walk you through who I am, just so that you know a little bit about me. And then Julius will do the same. So, very quickly, I started Social Tables about 8 years ago. Actually, before we do that, um, why don't, if you don't mind, everybody on all 147 of you, if you don't mind, just go ahead and use the chat feature. I'm going to actually ask a question here. Thank you, Rhonda and Eric, for your questions. And to Rhonda's question, by the way, the length will be about 45 to 1 hour. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the question because I'd like to see where everybody's from. I think that would be super. So I'm going to go ahead and pop up the question here. And then, actually, we're going to do the chat. Hold on one second. Oops. Hold on one second. You know what? Never mind. I'm going to figure out while Julius talks. I'm going to go back to my introduction, and I'll do that while you talk. But we want to know where you're from and where you're tuned in from. But anyway, my name is Don Berger. It's spelled Dan, pronounced Don. It's an Israeli name. I started Social Tables 8 years ago, and before Social Tables, I was an event planner. I ran an association. I did events and meetings for a member of Congress for 4 years. Um, and I probably most importantly, I'm a participant. I've been going to events, going to meetings, whether it's virtual, whether it's a festival, whether it's a meetings industry conference. I've been going to all of them, and I enjoy them as much as I enjoy attending them as much as I enjoy putting them together. And then finally, and the one that probably resonates the most with this crowd is that I'm a believer. I really believe in the power of meetings and events. And Social Tables in and of itself, we actually crossed 1 million events planned in our software last year, believe it or not. So we're event believers. We believe in the power of live events, face-to-face events, and that's why we do what we do to make events more successful. So Julius, you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the founder of eventmb.com. We have been around for 12 years now. I've been a crazy person back in 2007 talking about the use of event technology and social media in events. Pretty much talking to by myself back in the days. There were no blogs, no platforms, no nothing. So we've been at the forefront of pushing the good word of event technology out for the rest of the meeting industry. We've done a lot of reports, a lot of research on the use of event tech, from event apps to online registration. These are our numbers, but more than our numbers, our mission, my mission, is to bring clarity to event planners from around the world. So that's what drives me and my passion. I talk about events. I do plan some events as well, but I'm a talker. I'm not a doer. You are the doers, which I respect a lot. I have a deep love for event planners. I share their passions and their sorrows. So that's what drives me, and that's why I'm here.
Awesome. And if you're not aware of Event Manager blog, it's eventmb.com. It is arguably, I think not arguably, definitively the number one resource for event planners online. And actually, towards the end, Julia, I thought it'd be fun to ask ask the audience what they'd like to see you write more about. So maybe we can ask that a question towards the end to get some ideas of what we can cover in 2019. I'm going to spend just a couple of seconds just talking about the agenda. After the introductions, which we just did, we'll go over the 19 trends, which will include helpful tips and obviously where you can learn more. This slide deck will be available via SlideShare. We'll send it out the recording, and we'll make the slides available. And as everybody types in where they're from, I'm seeing a ton of responses here, and I'll go over that in a second. But I want to just give you just a couple of rules of the road, if you don't mind. Use the chat window to ask questions. We will answer them in real time. For those who've tuned into other Social Tables webinars, you know that we take this seriously. So please do participate. Even though it's virtual, let's make sure it's a two-way conversation. There's no need to take notes. Like I said, we're going to send you this information to your inbox. And if you have any questions, you can follow up anytime, whether to Julius or for myself. You can find us on Twitter, or you can send an email to hello@socialtables.com, and we will make sure we get to you. If it's a Julius, we'll forward it to Julius. Okay, and with that, just a couple of requirements for me to share about Social Tables in case you didn't know. Like I said, 100,000 events planned in Social Tables. We used to just be diagramming software. Today we do much more. We have some sales and marketing software for hotels, and then we have a search engine as well for large hotel chains, IHG, and soon to be announced another chain. So that's our headquarters right there. We put our money where our mouth is. In fact, behind me is 2 blocks that way is the White House, and it's actually unfortunate that it's going on in Washington. But apart from that, it's a very different scene here in Washington. I went to get lunch before this webinar, and the place I usually go get lunch was empty. And actually, that makes you start thinking about, just like a government shutdown can impact small businesses, large events can impact small businesses, or even small events. So the government shutdown has caused many events to be canceled, and that's happening all down near 2 blocks from where I am. And we're in DC's Metro Center, and our office right here, it's pictured, has actually been used for over 300 community events over the past 3 years. We open our doors and we give it away for free to anybody who needs it, either in the hospitality industry or the tech community, as a way of participating in the events industry as a whole. And we have 5,500 customers. In case you didn't hear the news, we were acquired by Cvent about 3 months ago. We're going through an integration, but the headline is that we're remaining Social Tables. We're a business unit. We didn't have we virtually had no layoffs. I'm still running the show, fortunately or unfortunately for people who are here at Cvent. But we are working to integrate with Cvent to make sure that the seating charts are plugged into registration, that the floor plans are plugged into the supplier network, and so on. But we're just getting a ton more investment, and we're super excited about that. Okay, so now that's that out of the way. Let's go ahead and let me just share, before we go to the first trend, let me just quickly share with you where people are from. We got people from Valerie's from Bloomington, Indiana. We got somebody, Sandy from Denver, Eric from Bethesda, somebody from Montreal, Anna, Dawn Lee from DC, somebody from Banff, Alberta, Canada, Lauren Fisher. I love Banff. Sacramento's in the house, San Francisco, Boston, another Bostonian, Chicago, Dallas, St. Simon Island. I don't even know where that is. Oh, I guess that's Georgia. Columbia, the country. More people from Indiana, more people from Columbia, Minnesota, Oregon, Maryland, Northern Virginia. Somebody from the Shed Aquarium in Chicago, very cool, Social Tables customer, hello. Francesca from DC, Florida's in the house, Brooklyn, New York, more Denver people, Portland people, Ohio people, Montana, Austin, Texas is in the house, Michigan, Danville, Pennsylvania, very specific, I like it. New York, my hometown. Schaumburg, Illinois, Philadelphia, Philly is in the house. Bucks Run Golf Club, Alexandria, Virginia, Casper, Wyoming. Oh, I think that says Ocean City. What does that say? That is, Ocean City, Maryland. Boulder, Colorado, California, Augusta, Georgia, Calgary, Alberta, Miami Beach, and many, many more. So welcome to all of you, University of Notre Dame. Leslie from DC, baby. Hi, Leslie. All right, let's get going. All right, so Julius, our first trend. This is going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be fast-paced. I'm a New Yorker. He's Italian. We're going to be quick. So our first trend is uncertainty will be a key theme in 2019. So just looking at these 2 charts, we're seeing this chart's actually really interesting. Got a lot of information over here, but basically talks about the increase in supply, the increase in demand, the lack of increase or decrease in occupancy. That's kind of staying flat. That's what people are saying. Average daily rate, revenue per available room, total revenue per available room, operating expenses, and then finally gross operating profit. So all these things are on the way up. We're seeing more supply than ever. In fact, we're almost nearing the highs of the pre-recession in 2008. You can see the number of sleeping rooms being under construction today is almost at the high of 2008. But Julius, we're not, even though it sounds good, we're not feeling that good, are we? It's feeling a little funny.
No, we're not. I mean, the indications are definitely good. The numbers are good, but we have to remember that we're living the longest bull market ever. ever in the history of Standard and Poor's, like since they start tracking. We're like 11 years in. So if, we know anything, I don't know nothing about the economy, I must say, I'm not a financial person at all. But one thing I learned is that cycles exist, and when it goes up, it's going to go down at some stage. So as a lot of commentators and pundits are saying, winter is coming. At some stage, it's going to go down, okay? So being prepared for that season, for the winter season, being cautious and, keeping an eye, don't be too excited, reading the numbers out there, keeping a very close sense of what's going on. That's my commentary to that.
Yeah, and one of the things I like to do at Social Tables, I like to do what I call disaster recovery planning. Like, let's say we lost um, half our workforce. Let's say something else happened. What are we going to do? What are we going to do if that happens? So we have a couple of takeaways for the planners and the venues, and this is going to be a theme throughout. But the planner takeaway is adjust your budgets to anticipate higher rates and book event space as early as possible, which is actually counterintuitive to what we want to do, which is millennials, Generation Z, last minute everything. But the reality is, the demand is continuing, so you gotta adjust for that. That being said, the other side is, if I'm a planner, I'm saying, wait a second. If there's going to be a recession, I'm going to wait a little bit, and the market turns, and it becomes a buyer's market, not a seller's market. So, you don't go all in on your meetings, and maybe you don't go all out on your meetings. And if you're a venue, well, you can use tools. Lead scoring tools. We have one. There are many out there. You can even create your own lead scoring algorithm in Excel. It's not that difficult. You just have a couple of weights, and you figure out, okay, what has historically performed better than other things, and then you can go ahead and save a lot of time as you're getting more and more leads, because it is right now still a buyer's market to a certain extent. But I will say one thing, Julius, and you and I talked about this as we prepared. Most of the people that talk about this stuff, they talk about transient business. They don't talk about group that much. And the instrumentation for anticipating group demand is not as good as the instrumentation for anticipating transient demand. So
Yeah, I mean that's pretty
reality.
much the case.
Yeah.
The volatility is there. I mean, we
Yeah.
keep an eye on suppliers, we keep an eye on budgets every year. We never had a Q4 looking like this in terms of very last second decisions, budgets confirmed at the last second. So there's a lot of uncertainty. Like that's, it's really reconfirming. Can we say anything else on top of that? No, it's uncertain. What are you going to do about it? Be careful. Don't go too far out because you're too excited about stuff, because the year is going to be long. That's one thing for sure.
That's a great one. One day at a my therapist tells me, one day at a time, Don, one day at a time. Take that advice. All right, let's move on. Say goodbye to typical event venues. Well, what does that mean? That means that we're moving outside the four walls. We've been talking about this for a while. Julie, something you know about a lot. But basically, 92% of event planners believe events are more likely to be booked outside of a hotel than 5 years ago. And that's a combination of comfort. It's a combination of vendors being more accessible. It's a combination of venues being available to market online and getting to us. But Julius, what are your thoughts on this? Because this is something you covered a lot in some of your reports, which, by the way, are
Yeah,
available for free
yeah,
to download. Anybody can go, sign up, download a report, and then looks even smarter in front of their team.
of course, very smart. So, it's all about the rise of experiences, as we call it. So, for the past couple of years, year and a half, events are evolving into experiences. What does it mean? All the components within the experiences in the event planning process have to deliver on that message, on that immersive type of feeling that we want to feel when we're part of an experience, as opposed to just an event. And the venue is probably the biggest component of that. We've done research on the topic, and obviously hotels, they're still strong out there. It's still a good option for most business meetings, but the choice of atypical venues, unusual venues, is number two. Is actually risen above anything else. So yeah, especially for your social program, if you're looking to deliver that element, your venue can help in that. So your venue selection. So keep that in mind, because where expectations level are rising, people want more. So you got to be able to surprise them with a very, very wise venue choice.
And I think as technology develops, as networks kind of tighten, as new ways of discovering space become more available, this will be a little easier. So if you're a planner, what do you do? Well, first thing you can do is, you turn to new solutions that can help you source non-traditional venues. There are alternative opportunities, and I like to think about this on the hotel side. I think the meaning of distribution is going to change. It's no longer going to mean just transient. How do I get more, you know, heads in beds? It's going to be, how do I get more group, and what are the other channels for group that I can go through? Cvent being one of them, the number one. But there are other ways to discover information. For example, at Social Tables, you can just find a floor plan for 13,000 venues, and that gives you a little piece of information. So you get a piece of information here, piece of information there. Maybe you go to Yelp and look over there. You go to BizBash for some inspiration. But there is new technology popping up all the time to discover new spaces. And as far as a venue takeaway, hotels need to evolve their event spaces or risk losing the business. I know that major chains are looking at a key pillar of actually increasing their capital expenditure around renovation, around adding new space. The Las Vegas Convention Center just is adding like another million or so square feet of space. The Javits Center is getting an expansion. The Moscone Center is getting an expansion. This needs to also happen at the smaller level. And if you can't do that, you can look at biz dev partnerships. If you're on the venue side and maybe you're specifically hotel, go look at venue. Or if you're a venue, go to hotels and say, hey, let's partner. Let's give me some business. I know people want non-traditional space like the Shed Aquarium, for example, that's plugged in today. And work with the hotels or work with the venues to form partnerships to do lead referrals. All right. And by the way, Laura asked us if we wore the same hoodie on purpose. The answer is a resounding no. But I don't know. I guess we have the same taste. And then Laura also asked Julius, this is for you. Where the report I mentioned, where can somebody download it?
Absolutely. eventmanagerblog.com/free-resources. If you go there, you will find a link to free resources. There's a list of all the reports that are available for download. Very evident once you land on eventmb.com.
Okay, I just put that link in the chat.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. So next, I hate this word, Julius. Why do we keep using it? I don't think I have a choice. But Bleisure is still a thing and it's growing. What does that mean? That means that people who are going to destinations for business meetings are either adding leisure at the beginning or the end of their stay. And we're seeing right here, based off of people who attend meetings either never, or occasionally, or frequently, when they decide, how much the decision to attend is related to the destination. And you can see that people, for example, who occasionally attend meetings, say 40% of the time, the location determines whether they'll go or not. And that's important for event planners, because if I'm trying to attract new people, or if I'm not trying to attract people who go to events sometimes, then these are the folks that really care about the location. Because all of us know the frequent people, they're going to go to your conference no matter what. They're going to go to conference whether it's in New York City, whether it's on the, whether it's in, I always try to not use real examples because there's meetings everywhere, or it's on the moon. So people are going to go anywhere. But the folks who never go or rarely go, we really want to be mindful of who we're trying to attract. And if so, really focus on the location for those folks. And 71% of all generations, regardless of how old you are, report that destination is a factor in the decision-making process. And like I said, 20 to 30% say it's a deciding factor. So, Julius, you've seen this trend. You continue to see
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this?
So this started last year very strongly, with 65% of business travelers extending their stay for leisure purposes.
Wow.
Though
two out of three people.
Yes, that's the statistic. I have to track down the source, but I've been presenting it for the past year all over the place. What is happening there? Two implications for planners. First, the decision of the destination, major impact, as you just said. But secondly, your leverage, what your leverage is with CVBs, DMOs, local authorities, tourism authorities. So your leverage with them is much more, because all of a sudden you're not just bringing the meeting impact in terms of budget to a specific destination. You're also extending that to the local tourism outside of your meeting. That's what's happening. That means that meetings have even a stronger potential for impacting local economies, and that has to be leveraged with your relationship with the CVB, with the DMO, and saying, you know what, not just bringing those people for just the 2 3 days. Some of them will extend and actually impact your city for a longer time. So that has a component. That means that your CVB has to work for you. They have to help you. They have to become your partner. So that's my takeaway for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, put the CVB to work. I totally agree. And it's so many times people just don't, and in anything in life, we forget that our service providers are meant to provide service. So planners obviously balance affordable destinations with attendees' desires and venues. A great attendee experience might result in transient business later on. So the first impression is a lasting impression. Now taking center stage sustainability. Now, when you and I talked about this, I said, "Hey, this has been a trend for a long time. Why are we putting it on here?" And we said, "Well, I think it's the difference between center stage and sidebar." And I think that if you look at what Marriott did with the plastic straws, right? We're talking about 5,000, 6,000 global hotels saying no more plastic straws, moving to metal straws. And I'm in love with this case study of the plastic straw. I don't know if you are, but basically, I've never seen an effort, a global effort around one thing get so much traction so quickly. And
It's viral.
yeah, it really is. It really is, and it's got a face, right? With the turtles, and you can see it because everybody uses it. So it's just a great. It's a terrible thing, but it's a great story. Um, So if you're a planner, encourage attendees to bring reusable mugs. Go digital with event content. That's obvious. Bring a straw. In fact, when I speak to bartenders, they tell me the ones that have metal straws. They tell me that people steal them all the time. So that's a good
They
swag.
do.
How do you know? No, I'm just kidding. So the planner takeaway is encourage reusable items and venues. Phase out. Oops, sorry about the line break there. Phase out wasteful products like single-use plastic and paper cups, and that will you will get credit for that.
Done. One for you here, luxury markets. If you work with luxury markets, the luxury consumer, the luxury attendee, they care a lot about the sustainability piece. It's very inherent to their, attendance. There's a lot of research that supports that. So, some levels of attendees, if you work with the C-level suite a lot, with very high profile, type of attendees in certain verticals as well, the attention to sustainability, it can make or break your event. So you cannot afford that.
And I will add, I totally agree. And I will add, and by the way, it's actually interesting because there are going to be stigmas, and stigmas will get, so just like I think, cigarettes have a stigma these days that they didn't have a couple decades ago. There will be stigmas, or pops, pop soda has stigmas. There will be stigmas to using a plastic straw or whatnot. And I'll just add, thanks to Natalie Castaneda, who mentioned that also Hilton and Hyatt are providing paper straws as well. So thank you for that. I'm sure other folks are doing that as well. Please keep. By the way, awesome engagement. Thank you very much. Keep it up. Correct us. Give us more information. Ask questions. I have the questions right in front of me, and I will mention them every time. It's important for us that you're all engaged in order to make this useful for everybody. You can learn from us, but you can also learn from each other. Probably more. Okay, next up, brands must impact word of mouth. This is basically the very simple question is how do you select a venue? And as you can see, 70%, by the way, you will notice that this doesn't add to 100% because a lot of data points make up for the decision to choose a venue. Word of mouth is 70% of all venue selection has a word of mouth component, either all of it or some of it. And really the reality is that we've started using what's referred to in tech world as social proof or validation, using technology to validate some decisions we're making. Like, for example, what we should buy, where we should book, who we should choose for a vendor, and so on and so forth. So social proof is a super important component and will continue to be a component of, it's just like reputation management is what hotels call it. And the planner takeaway is leveraging a venue's uniqueness. For example, the Alzheimer's Foundation worked with London and partners to light up the London Eye purple. That's a Ferris wheel in London purple, which is the color of the Alzheimer's Association. So being able to leverage things that destinations offer to send a message is very powerful. And for your venue, it's about if it's about identifying a feature in your venue that distinguishes it from everybody else, and you can market around it. I think about in in Charleston there is the pineapple fountain, or at the Anatole there's all this beautiful Asian art. Those are the things that come to mind. Having this iconic thing that people are drawn to. At social tables, it's this pink hallway we have, which you may have seen in photos. Julius, what are your thoughts about word of mouth? Because I know that obviously, as a media person, you know, you rely on it, but you also realize it will be replaced eventually.
Yeah, well, it will. I mean, this is our research, by the way, the one you see mentioned here, and obviously multiple choices. As planners, we handle one of the largest community on LinkedIn. We have 400,000 event planners there. And I keep seeing people asking for recommendation. Can you recommend a venue in New York City? It's still the strongest driver for venues. Like when we source venues, we always go out to bulletin boards and so forth, Facebook pages, and ask other planners for recommendations. And that's fine. It's totally fine. But that is changing as well. As we've seen in hotels, a selection for the consumer where we go on TripAdvisor, and now that is the social proof. I don't ask my uncle, have you been to somewhere nice, somewhere else? I couldn't care less.
I am always talking.
It's evolving. It's becoming more structured. So yes, word of mouth is going to be there. It's going to be very important. You made an example. I could make an example of the Anaheim Convention Center and their beautiful outside path that they have where they put food trucks and they close it down for you. That's a very word of mouth worthiness type of venue there. But what we're trying to say is, yes, recommendation, very important. Influence that recommendation as much as you can. Make it Instagram and all of that. But remember that as we go along, people will have other tools to make their own decision. And they will have to search on social tables, for example, to find more information about the venue, reviews. That is coming as well on the longer term, and there's going to be more tools. But we have a slide about that. I don't want to anticipate too much.
Yeah, totally. And then again, in a way, what happened in leisure and transient is kind of predicts what will happen in groups. So they're absolutely right. Reviews is a good example of that. Mid-sized cities will keep making moves. So what does that mean? That means that 93% of international travelers, or international event planners, I should say that a destination's culture highlights are an important piece of the decision making. So what does that mean if you're a planner? Work with the CVBs. We talked about that. We had some comments from the audience says that was a great tip. You're welcome. And make sure that memorable experiences such as curated tours are a part of the deals you're cutting with the CVBs. And then as far as the venue is concerned, you can partner with local restaurants and attractions to bring a taste of your city, your city's culture to the attendees that come in. It's a pretty obvious one. I'm going to go just skip along on that one. But one thing I will say is that I think that new transportation modes will also unlock new cities that were a little harder to reach, perhaps. But that won't happen in 19. We're just talking about 19. So next week is 2020. No, I'm kidding. All right. Venue sourcing process will evolve. We just talked about venue sourcing. And so, Julius, I'm going to let you take this 1 second. I just got to clear my...
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well,
go ahead.
I can take over, on this one. It's exactly what we were just talking about. Word of mouth, very important. But you see it here. 16% of planners, they don't know how they're going to source their venue, if it's the venue from last year, if it's a new venue. It's still a very uncertain process with a big budget implication. And it's a very complex decision that involves a lot of stakeholders. So influencing that decision is very important for the supplier side, obviously, being present on all the platforms for the venues, be there on a supplier network, be there with venue reviews, something that we do on Attendee. Like a lot of, the more channels you're on, the better, because you want to be ready at all touch points. For the planner, that are the days where we go and meet the nice salesperson from just a venue and say, oh, you recommend your venue, it's amazing. And that's that, boom, shake your hand, boom, done the contract. No, we have more elements to appreciate and make a better decision about the venue. We have to be more analytical, not just the one. Face to face, yes, very important to influence your decision, but not just the face to face element. You have to make a structured decision. You have to research. You have to compare. There are tools for you to do that. Let's not be in 2008. We're 2019. We have all the tools to make a much better informed decision that your boss is going to like.
Yeah, and I think it's only the beginning of it. The next step is going to be automated booking, especially for the small meetings and events. Okay. Personalization will move beyond personas. By the way, Julius, thank you for helping me with that. Personalization will move beyond personas. What does this mean? It means that 96% of the audience that we surveyed believe the events they're planning are expected to be more personalized. Well, if you're a planner, you can do all kinds of things. And what's really interesting is that this is moving beyond big meetings. So small meetings are getting just the same technology that big meetings are getting, whether it's polling, whether it's an engagement, and so on. So there are all kinds of things you could do to give people a personal experience. And then as far as venue is concerned, what you can do is make sure you showcase different event-specific variations with proposal software. So for example, if I'm planning a certain meeting, I shouldn't see social event in my proposal. You can very easily swap out content on your website to make it relevant to the people you're trying to target. Make sure that winter photos are in the winter and summer photos are in the summer, and so on and so forth. As it relates to venues, what the other thing you can do is personalize information about the person they're trying to close. So nowadays there are tools that tell you, hey, this is Julius Solaris, this is what he does, this is how much his company might make for information that's a little more public and perhaps slightly bigger company. This is where they're located, this is what he said on social media, and you can personalize the sale much more. Julius, anything to add to that?
Yeah, my point of that is also to take a step backwards for planners. And when we talk about the content of your event, like really, this is the first step for the personalization to actually happen. And thinking about your attendees when you're sourcing, for example, your speakers for your conference, like, are you thinking about the needs of your attendees, what they want to get out of it, the transformation piece? So we call this year, 2019, the year of transformation, where experiences really make an impact on people when they transform people. So how is your content helping your attendees on a personal level to evolve? And, we will talk about, big sort of stunts and great experiences and all of that, but we attend events to be educated as well, to learn about stuff, especially in an information overload on the internet. We attend conferences to get a summary of the content that we want to hear about. So how are you delivering on that? Are you selecting speakers that, for example, help your attendees to, get more leads, be better at business? Or are you just, think, oh, who's hot this year and let's book them? That kind of mentality is evolving in 2019.
Cool. Couldn't agree more. Meetings are becoming festivals. You just talked about this, and basically it's the idea. There are 800 annual festivals in the United States that see over 30 million attendees. And just like transient business and leisure business predicts group business, the consumer events predict business events. And again, you can see, and by the way, the airline industry predicts what will happen in the hotel industry. So there are a lot of areas that we can learn instead of kind of trying to guess the future. We can just learn from adjacent markets. So festivals are a great one because we are seeing the festivalization of meetings. And if you're a planner, performances and other festival type entertainment can boost engagement, but also they require buyouts and complex logistics. So it is a balancing act. If you're but go ahead and study consumer events to get ahead of the trends. One of the ideas you may want to hear about is going to a local convention center and checking out what's happening there. It's public space. You can go into any convention center and at least look at the expo that's happening, or look at the consumer show that's happening, and get ideas from that without even paying an admission ticket. And then if you're a venue, resorts, golf courses, and similar venues should utilize their spaces to accommodate different events in what's called dark days or shoulder seasons, basically in the times that they are not likely to be used as much. Julius, you've seen the festivalization of events. What are some examples of events that do this well besides Salesforce?
Well, I can make an example like that happened 2 days ago, and there's this actually happening right now as PCMA convening leaders, and they were having you know beautiful stunts, BMX bikers sort of running around on the stage and doing stuff like that, which is a great entertainment piece, but also how you connect the audience. We've seen all the example for C2 and IMAX as well. In our industry doing extremely like it doesn't have to be revolutionary. That's another thing. Let's not use budget as an
That's so good. I
excuse.
love that.
It's about the creativity part. What can we borrow from the meetings festival? Is the feeling that we have of connection with other people. That's what makes events effective, connecting to other people, more than speakers, more than performers, more than anything else.
One thing I'm
That's
thinking about as you're talking, and I've been, you watch Apple do their shows, and you watch CES and Google and Tesla, and you know, Jeep just released their new pickup truck, and you're thinking, okay, I don't have the budget for a promotional roadshow like that. I don't have the technical prowess for such complex productions. Um, but how can we make some things? How can meeting planners make things appeal? How can things have sex appeal that may not necessarily that may be more intellectual or more scholastic or more you know um, academic? Is it showing the latest medical devices in a medical meeting? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can we take an association's product and make it a festival? I don't know. It's
it's
an open-ended
the
question.
connection part. What I remember for our research, we've done some of the largest pieces of research on the engagement piece, for a report that we called Engaging Events. And, there's one element, and nobody talks about it in our industry, it drives me crazy. Like, we evaluate events in terms of satisfaction. The number one element is connection with other people. So making that connection, that's why festivals we get so excited. We have people's wedding next to us and we're singing with them, we're holding them, we're embracing them. We don't even know who they
Where are you
are.
going? I want to go where you're going.
We're so outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah,
This is the element that we love about festivals. It's not the performance as such.
yeah.
It's not the
But
special.
how do you do that in a business setting though?
How do you do it? Easy games to connect them. Offline games, yes, you can use an app to do it. Fantastic if you want to use an app. It works. But you could do it offline with like mingling, rethinking the setting of your room, using different layouts. Don't use the if you expect engagement and you have a lecture
I want
style
to theater stuff.
type of
Yeah,
setting, what is the first thing you're thinking about in a lecture style? I'm thinking about school. I want to run away from it. I want to stay as away as possible from it.
yeah, yeah.
So, very simple, man, sort of moves that we can make to
I love that.
stimulate.
I love that. Julius, you and I can do this. Should be a 5 hour thing. We got to keep going, man. We got.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, no, no,
Shut me.
no. It's my fault. It's my fault. And I got my team, sending me messages that I'm gonna get the. Yeah. All right. Attendee data continues to be in demand. This is a pretty easy one. So it's basically like, look, we know everybody wants data. We know everybody wants to segment their population in a million different ways. What Julius and I think is that while you want big data around attendee engagement, booth visits, session tracking, and so on, the reality is we're not doing the right things with the data we already have. So let's take a step back on data and actually analyze the data we have before we try to start tracking stuff we don't even know how to track. That being said, there is going to be some takeaway. There is going to be some RFID use cases for more advanced planners, and there's short range, long range beacons, and so on. But you have to understand the data you're collecting before you ask for more data. And if and again, if you're a venue and you're trying to attract leading edge planners, certainly make sure that there is RFID enabled hardware as part of your capital expense. Anything to add to this, Julius? I know engagement.
Yeah, just give your supplier a hard time. Give Dan and his team a hard time to show you the data that matters. But
Totally,
you know
totally.
what? Dan and his team, they're ready for it. They
Yeah,
cannot wait to show you the data that matters. So
absolutely. And I've told my
never
team,
just
like,
budget.
this is a revenue opportunity for us. You tell us your problem, and we'll give you the solution. I mean, we can go into our database and start digging up, SQL database, um, um, and if we want to, and give you information any way you want. You just need to know what you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, up next, 5G slowly bursting onto the scene. So I thought 4G just came out. Suddenly you're talking about 5G. 4G is also LTE, as Verizon calls it. It's basically faster and whatever. And about 1.5 billion 5G subscriptions will be active by 2025. So the infrastructure, the towers, the spectrum, it's all going up there. And planners and venues need to start thinking about that now. Obviously, for planners, think about your Wi-Fi budgets as you start planning ahead because it might not be as high as it used to be. People have everything accessible on their phone. Probably reception is still going to be an issue. If you're a venue, especially in mid-sized cities, you may have less demand because you're not going to get 5G spectrum ahead of time. So prepare for somewhat of a downturn. So closed ecosystems are forcing mobile apps to evolve. Julius, when we say closed ecosystems, what are we talking about?
So, yeah, there's a trend, like in terms of, a lot of events, a series of events, in creating their own ecosystems. And as a result, that is impacting the whole event technology stack. We want to get sort of branded apps, that work for our series of events. And it's forcing event technology companies to adapt. Like we have very specific requirements in terms of what we need to do. There are sort of legislation implications as well, such as data security and GDPR that are adding a lot of pressure to event planners to implement technology that is secure, that performs and responds to their needs. So this is the driving trend. As a result in technology, we want technology partners and suppliers that support those closed ecosystems that are safe, secure, and branded, white label in most cases for a lot of very important events, but also for small meetings, because technology is all of a sudden happening in small meetings as well. I want an app to navigate through the agenda. I don't want to, we were talking about sustainability, go through paper and print and do a lot of waste with that. So there are benefits there, but the drive for security and data privacy is impacting technology like never before. And a lot of event app companies are crumbling under this. They're like, really don't know what to do. So what does it mean for you, event planners? Do your research, ask for compliance, ask for how they're delivering, ask for partnerships, like what are the account managers, all these beautiful things to have, you gotta have today, because the implications are incredibly tough for your event. You have a beautiful event, you thought about everything else, data breach, as we've seen on the conservative convention for the UK Conservative Party. Data breach in an event mobile app, all the data exposed, boom, out there. Who cares about the event anymore? We care about the data breach, massive media coverage about it. So we have to be ready for that, and we have to select partners that support it.
Yeah, and basically, I mean, when you're thinking about Apple versus Android, I mean, Apple has a closed ecosystem. They don't want a million apps out there. So they're saying events is kind of creating a lot of noise. It's basically event apps are almost like litter in the ocean, and you don't need all these tiny little one-time, non-reusable applications. And we have seen an increase in mobile apps. Last year, we'll see it again this year at 3%. So talk to your provider about a holistic mobile strategy. Get that app for all the events instead of one at a time, and that will also drive your costs down. Um, and I think for venues, one of the things you have to realize, as even though we're kind of talking out of two sides of our mouth here, everybody will always be on this thing, right? So everybody's going to be on this thing. So just plan for that. And I don't know what that means for you, but just imagine that what if, again, disaster recovery, what if 100% of attendees are on their phone 100% of the time? How does the event change? Okay. Security is a safe bet. You just mentioned it. I don't think we need to. Well, you mentioned the cybersecurity. This is more about safety and security in terms of violence and perhaps a natural disaster. I mean, 90% of our survey respondents obviously said that event security is a top industry for them. For planners, make sure you got the right folks in the room. I'm telling you what you know. I'm not going to repeat it, but understand all the things, and even take your floor plan and mark it up and have your exit paths. We're actually thinking about developing that kind of feature at Social Tables that gives you a security layer to understand where the escape paths are and so on. We do some of that right now, but not as far as fire safety is concerned. And as far as if you're a venue, show your planners that security is top of mind for you. Bring the experts. Be proactive about that to help them do their job better. Anything to add? Julie's pretty straightforward, right?
Nothing much.
Yeah.
That's it.
So wellness as the way to be as the way to productive meetings. Wellness obviously means a lot of things. It means eating right. It means having some sort of physical activity. Um, as we've seen in surveys, sustainable practices are more important to venues than they were three years ago, and and venues are implementing more initiatives around health and wellness. So wellness is influencing everything. The Weston, for example, is positioning wellness as a key value proposition for meetings, and some hotels even offer in-room Pelotons as an example. So if you're a planner, highlight wellness wins in event advertising because it's important to your attendees. They're thinking about how am I going to go to the gym if I'm away for 5 days? They're thinking about how am I going to eat a good meal if I'm away for 5 days because we know we eat like crap when we're at a conference. And even offering wellness swag like a blue light glasses. Those are the glasses to use for computers or workout gear to encourage that kind of behavior because oftentimes the workout gear is what doesn't make the packing list. And if you're a venue, highlight and when you're doing RFI responses or RFP responses, highlight the gym and wellness amenities you may not usually include, and talk about local sourcing, allergy consciousness, etc.
Nothing to add. It's all
Nothing.
yours.
Obvious stuff. All right, we're almost there. We got four more, then perhaps we have a bonus track. We may surprise everybody. So appreciate everybody sticking around, and I love all the comments. One person had to go, but they said they really enjoyed it. So we're happy to hear it, and we're going to keep going. Experiential playground spaces are in. Basically, 80% of event planners that we polled last year reported the experience creation as a part of their job more than it was 5 years ago. Planner takeaways: create a sandbox, a playground. And what do you do in a playground? You meet people, you engage with people, and use technology to be the tools in the playground, not the old tired booth and kind of technology, what do you call it, alley or whatever it's called, but really an experiential setting where people can really play with something, and hence the word playground. And then if you're a venue, create spaces and facilitate setups that have the movable walls, the flexible furniture that can allow for this kind of play to take place. I'm even thinking about what about actually creating a playground inside a ballroom, like
Yeah.
bring in a slide, bring in all that stuff, and have a lot of fun with it. I'm thinking like American Ninja or something like that. I don't know. That's kind of what I have in my head.
Oh, beautiful. You have all those ball pits as well,
Yeah,
like with
yeah,
all
yeah.
the
Or now
balls.
for puppies or whatever they're doing, and different. Obviously, animals are being brought into to events. Anything to add to this, Julius? I know obviously this includes a lot of text.
Yeah, it's about the same thing that we talked about during the festivalization of event trend. It's about connecting people and finding ways, you removing the barriers for connection. Sometimes mobile phones can be a barrier to connection as well. Even if you have a networking app on it, and it's an excuse not to connect in real life or face to face. So merge the two. Give a space for people to connect. That's what we're talking about here.
Um, I'm gonna go on. Um, I'm just gonna go ahead and type out a question for the crowd. So I'm typing out. We're nearing the end. Please make sure you add your trends for 2019 that you think we may have missed. So I just put that in the chat. It went to everybody. Let's keep going, Julius. We got a few more. It's time for food and beverage to veg out. This is related to the wellness. Vegetarian is in. According to the Vegan Society, I think they're a little biased, but whatever. Britain's vegan population has increased to half a million people in just a decade. Planners, millennials are twice as likely to avoid meat, show flexibility to menus, maybe just go veg all the way, and maybe even fake it, tell them it's meat when it's actually not, because we know there's some good stuff out there, right?
Two words for you: Impossible Burger. They just launched their new patty at CES. So it's a high tech type of mimicking burger type of thing. It's so good. Like, I challenge you to go out, like, after this
I
webinar.
want that. That sounds so good.
Impossible Burger. You try it out and you write to me on Twitter whether you like it or not. And if you like it, you can ask your F&B to try to source those vegan type
Is
of
it more
alternatives.
expensive, Julius? Because I read that it's really
I
high.
mean, yeah, it is. I mean, it's not as cheap, obviously, but we have to cater better for this audience. Like just putting a salad there and saying that it's vegan, like vegans are gonna look at you like, are you kidding me? Like, is this seriously what you're
Call
trying to
yourself
do?
a vegan.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like putting some crackers there and saying that it's
That's
vegan. Like, I need a proper meal as a vegan. I'm not a
yeah.
vegan, but
Just because you're
I
vegan doesn't mean you eat less or
no.
less hearty things or less flavorful things. You know.
Exactly. And you can also like show meat lovers how good vegan food can be.
So Andrew Cheney reminds us that food trucks are better than in-house food and beverage most of the time. That's a great option. Thank you, Andrew Cheney. Leslie Aldana says that at the Radiator and Mason at Radiator and Mason and Rook Hotel they serve Impossible meat and it's so good. Um, and then let's keep going. Okay, all right. Next up, 17. Minimalism is event decor will have maximum impact. So this is really about doing less with more. You don't need a ton of things. You don't need a ton of colors. You don't need all this kind of all these accoutrements. Just minimal designs, white walls, wooden or concrete floors, very basic, geometric furniture. I'm not thinking IKEA, and I'm thinking more like design within reach, but things that are back to the basics and not over the top. And because they provide a certain level of elegance that I think some of your meeting attendees will appreciate. So free up budget by spending on simpler, smaller chairs, tables, portions, and venues, and devote the remainder to memorable content, photos, art, things like that, plants. Venue takeaways. Is your ballroom full of unnecessary molding and ornamentation? Evaluate how you can modernize your offering to appeal to millennial preferences. Um, Let's keep going. Improved transportation will make new destinations viable. So this is around what I talked about a little bit, but basically all of us know, and Julius, I didn't know about this. Apparently, there's self-driving cars in Vegas. Is that true?
Oh my God, yeah. When you select a Lyft, as opposed to a Uber, you get the option to get a self-driving car. Vegas also trialed a self-driving bus to sort of do a tour of the city. So, it's happening. And Vegas is obviously the mecca of business meetings.
And to
So
think
there's a
that
lot of things.
Vegas didn't even have Uber a few years ago. They really have gone at 180 on transportation.
That's what we love about Vegas. It's all or nothing, all in.
I still can't believe you moved from Italy to Vegas, but that's a different webinar. That's
Well,
amazing.
that's for another webinar, Don.
Well, you're always welcome in DC. All right. So basically, between 2019 and 2023, ride-sharing industry is forecast to continue to grow 11% annually. On top of that, features will be unlocked in your regular car. You might even have a contraption for your old car that will make it self-driving. Imagine a thing you put on the wheel. It's got a camera and it does the work. So basically, we're going to see more automated driving. We're going to be able to see get to destinations quicker, maybe work on the way to them as opposed to drive. And with mid-sized cities growing in popularity, planners need to be creative to provide more robust transportation. And so maybe devoting some time and budget to ride sharing. Venues ensure you have private shuttle to and from the airport. Maybe it can be self-driving, and ensure that you can get to the surrounding community. Okay. Um, Last and actually not last, almost last because we have a couple surprises, but face-to-face events, most importantly, I should say, face-to-face time and events will be coveted. What do I mean? Well, look at the numbers, folks. The reality is the amount of time, right here is the number of time we spend hours per day in the USA that we spend on digital media has gone up over the years from 2.7 10 years ago to 5.9 a couple years ago. So over 10 years, it's gone up about zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.3 hours per day. The reality is that the face-to-face time, and I count this as, obviously, Natalia Castaneda said that hybrid meetings are going to be bigger. This is a good example of that. We got audience engagement. We got two people from two different parts of the world. We got a presentation. We're going to record it for people to see it later on. This is a lot of good things here. But the reality is face to face is more coveted because we spend more and more time in front of these things and these things. So 52% of survey respondents said that event marketing drove more business value to other channels. It starts with events, and that's a channel for you, just like everything else, all your other marketing channels. Julius, anything to say about that? Because I know you're passionate about marketing as a
It's not
relates to
a
marketing.
channel. I have to correct you then. It is the most effective
Most
channel
effective. Yeah, not the best.
ever.
Thank you.
Because you know what? I'm getting so frustrated right now because I want to meet Dan and have a coffee with him in real person. This is what technology is doing to us. It's making us feeling the urgency to meet in person. And when we do meet in person, we have a lot of context from digital that we want to talk about in person. And those,
Oh,
and therefore, the value of that meeting is
I love
so
that.
much more important. Marketers are realizing that there's marketing budgets coming to events. Finally, the trend is so strong in 2019. Get the marketing budget for your event, make it happen for them. So go outside of just the regular meetings. There's a lot of marketing budgets being assigned to events. Events are the channel of 2019.
Love it. Love it. And I agree. How many times have you met up with somebody in real life and you're like, hey, I saw your tweet. I saw your post. I saw your photo. That is giving us content for I love that. Love that. That's awesome. Plan or takeaway, schedule ample opportunity for networking and face to face. That's obvious. Partner with marketing and leverage their budgets. There you go. Go to marketing and say, hey, I'm giving you a ton of stuff. Give me some money. Venue takeaways, create spaces that promote spontaneous interaction and highlight them in your offering. Super important. Okay, I'm going to quickly read off. And by the way, my last question to you as I read this off, what do you think Julius should blog about in 2019? That is my question to everybody. I'll let you answer that. In the meantime, I'm going to give you some of the trends that people have said. That Tracy Post said, centerpieces, not using typical floral, but getting more creative with candles, balloons, small figurines, having dessert platters. Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. Andrew Cheney says people are asking to use them over in food and beverage house F&B. He's talking about food trucks. We need to be more creative to combat or partner with food trucks. So Andrew says enough with the wishy-washiness. We either partner with food trucks or we take them on. Totally agree. And by the way, Social Tables diagramming has a food truck object you can use that also renders in 3D. Fun fact.
That's cool.
Yep.
Didn't know that.
Change the size and stuff. Alexa Tipton says mix up seating. We love seating. Oh, that's funny. We love seating. Seating is all. Social Tables started about seating. We do a little more, but we started about seating. We often utilize couches and funky but still comfortable furniture for our meetings, and it tends to make people feel more comfortable and more apt to engage in the presentation. Totally agree. There's a great book called Seating Matters. It talks about the Bill of Rights of the attendee, and it talks about how comfort is one of those rights that attendees have. Very good point. Hands-on is another trend going on, like a playground, but with food and beverage, being more interactive with food and beverage stations, not just typical buffets. Thank you, Tracy Post. Athena Health has a spinning bus in Boston, Natalia Castadena tells us. Okay. Um, okay. Julius, I'm going to read the stuff people have for you at the end because I want to just go through these last three. Bonus trends. Cannabis demand is higher than ever. These are states in which that cannabis is either being legalized or is available for recreational use. Basically, 20% of all states will have in the U.S. will have legalized marijuana consumption, and demand for cannabis will be on the rise. This will impact event planners and venues. They need to understand the rules. They need to understand that they have to set up policies. That maybe you're going to have a cannabis smoking room. I don't know, but maybe you have a track just for high people. I mean, you may not be able to control this stuff. So
It's happening. VIP rooms with cannabis.
yeah, right, exactly. A new meaning for the hosted planner, I guess. All right, tight labor market. Okay, so we're reaching a point where unemployment is actually like, I think, what is it called? Like, there's a name for it where unemployment is virtually zero.
Don't ask me, I'm Italian.
Basically, it's a point where like you can't get below the unemployment rate because it's so low, and we're essentially at that point. The U.S. unemployment rate over the last 10 years has dipped to below 4%. And the reality is that there may be a recession, but the other reality is there is a labor shortage. Alan Greenspan, the notorious economist, said America is experiencing the tightest labor market he's ever seen. So that means that wages are going to have to be re-looked at every year, maybe every 6 months, maybe every event. Who knows? It's going to cost more money to keep your labor, to not just to hire your labor, but to keep it. And then finally, the re-emergence of boutique and independent hotels. This is around all the mergers and acquisitions happening on the supply side. Marriott and Starwood, IHG and Kimpton, Hyatt and Destination Hotels. The list goes on and on. We're seeing the convergence of so many major hotel chains. It only makes sense for independent hotels and boutique hotels to start rearing their heads in the mix and try to get a piece of it too, because they're probably seeing a market opportunity. So planners, look for those as an opportunity. Venues, make sure that you talk to your owners and talk to them about ways that they can leverage this trend. And with that, There is information about me, about Julius, and I want to give you the ideas, Julius, right now. Definitely expand on the year of transformation. Everybody wants to know more about it. Please
Yay.
write more about nonprofit event planning, according to Zoe Van Dyke. CJ Navarro is the one who wanted to learn more about
Yeah,
transformation.
good point.
Madison Allen says, I would like to see more about event tech.
Okay.
Laura Varno says, cannabis demand is high. No pun intended.
It is.
Cannabis is a hot topic. And Sheila Choice says, yes, cannabis industry is going to change the game.
Ooh.
Agreed. And Laura thanks us for great info. Well, folks, we are just 3 minutes over. I want to take a moment to thank Julius. You've been an incredible partner. Time flew by. And you've been such an awesome audience. We love doing this. Thank you so much, Kim, for your kind words. She says, fantastic webinar. I have to do a presentation on 2019 trends, so it's very timely. Well, I'm going to give you my email address, and you can email me, and I'll send you the presentation. How about that before it goes to SlideShare? For those who want to see the presentation, I'm going to go ahead and put um, uh, uh, our link to it. It'll be online there, but we'll also email you. Anything to add, Julius?
Thank you, Don. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year. Bye-bye.